Thank you. Day after day, this government blames everyone but themselves for their decision. This NDPC team blames the federal government for cutting healthcare funding. It was the feds. It was the Harper government in 2007 that fundamentally changed health funding in Canada to a per capita basis, ignoring the extra costs that a province like Manitoba faces because of people living in northern and rural areas as well as in poverty. Was the Premier fighting for his Manitoba team then? No. As an MP, he voted for that change. Will the Premier admit to not standing up for Manitobans in 2007?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Active Living.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do appreciate the member raising the inadequate funding from the federal government. She will know, I'm sure, she'll remember that it was the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, during the election campaign, the federal election campaign, who campaigned. He sent a letter to all the premiers and said, if I'm elected as Prime Minister, one of the first things I'm going to do is to convene all the premiers from across Canada together to talk about how we can properly fund healthcare in Canada. We're going to have a real discussion right across Canada. We're still waiting for that meeting. It never happened. If she wants to blame Stephen Harper for the promise of Justin Trudeau, she's got a long way to go on that discussion, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kewatinook on a supplementary question.
Thank you. As Manitoba Liberals, we are very pleased that the feds have increased funding to Manitoba to about $434 million now in the last 3 years. Does the Premier remember when the Harper Conservatives decided to cut the funding formula to provinces from 6% to 3%? The Premier and his NDPC team would have Manitobans believe that this was our current government, Liberal government, that made this change. But it was the Premier's former caucus colleague, Jim Flaherty. Can the Premier set the record straight? Will he admit he now wants to reverse all these federal health care cuts he supported and voted for?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I thank the member for the question. That member should remember that the Parliamentary Budget Officer just released a report a number of weeks ago saying exactly that the federal government will have increasing fiscal capacity to address the real gap in health care that they are not addressing. Now, the Parliamentary Budget Officer takes the side of Manitoba and says the federal government could be doing more. Instead, the federal government has chosen to do less. That member, if she asks these questions, should pay attention to facts like that and others and make sure she has her facts straight.
The Honourable Member for Kewatinook on a final supplementary.
Madam Speaker, as a caucus, we did meet with the Finance Minister and we told him that we believe that the federal government should play a strong role in funding health care. Since the Premier has a reputation for not partaking in meetings, perhaps he does not want to meet with our provincial Finance Minister either. My staff put together a chart of total federal funding that I will table. It's nicely color-coded for those members. Under federal Liberals, funding goes up, and under Conservative, it flatlines. If the Premier is opposed to a smaller role for the federal government in health care, why did he vote for it in 2007?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Well, that member should understand how the health care transfers are calculated. She understands that health care transfer is done on the basis of a 3-year rolling average of nominal federal GDP, and she knows that this year the GDP is higher. She also knows that every economist in the Western world is saying that all jurisdictions should get ready for slower growth, which means with it will come less of a transfer to Manitoba and less of a transfer to the other provinces. If that member really wants to advocate for more secure health care in Manitoba, she will begin by getting on the phone with her federal partners and advocating for a squarer deal for all the jurisdictions and replace the $2.2 billion that the feds cut to health care.